So I'm pleased today to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the dedication of one of New Bedford's most famous and visible landmarks, the Hurricane Dike, which we're all familiar with and stands as one of the largest man-made structures in America. What I thought we'd do today is to talk a little bit about the facts of some of the fun facts around the dike, and then talk about its significance a little bit. Today with me, I'm pleased to have Colonel Charles Samaras, who is the commander of the Army Corps of Engineers for the New England District, along with Larry Worden, who is not only our commissioner of the Department of Public Facilities here in New Bedford, but who also, as a kid, watched this thing being constructed. I told Larry earlier that this will date him a little bit, but he's fine with that. And we're also joined by Brian Bocog, the Fairhaven selectman, who's going to also speak briefly today. This barrier is something that connects our communities in a very big way, and the Fairhaven, as much as this is a part of New Bedford, it's also a big part of the town of Fairhaven. Let me just run down a few facts about the dike, because to put it into context. So the interest in the construction of having a breakwater here in New Bedford started as far back as the 1940s, and specifically in 1948, a proposal was written that received a favorable response from the public, but over the years thereafter, the public lost interest in building something. That was until 1954, and for those of you who are old enough here, and those of you who, like me, grew up with parents who had stories about the 54 hurricane, the 1954 is significant because that hurricane caused a tremendous amount of damage, not nearly as much as the 1938 hurricane, which resulted in about 600 deaths in New England. The 54 hurricane was very significant, that it caused widespread damage not only in residential areas but along the mills in the city, as well as on the waterfront. So when that happened, it caused approximately $26 million in property damage, which in today's dollars would put it at probably in excess of certainly $500 million. So at the time, the local, state, and federal representatives worked together with the Army Corps of Engineers to design a barrier that would protect not only the city of New Bedford and its shoreline, but also Cushing and Fairhaven as well. And it's done that successfully for over the last 50 years. Construction began on the barrier on November 17, 1962. So we just had the anniversary of the event, and it was completed on May 21st, 1966. Construction involved about 1 million man-hours of planning, construction, testing, and finishing. The barrier was completed by two contractors: Loranja Corporation of New Bedford, which is no longer around, but was for many decades a contractor that built numerous prominent sites in the city of New Bedford, as well as the Perini Corporation of Framingham, which continues today as a major national contractor. The barrier itself is nearly 4 miles long and stretches obviously to Fairhaven, as well as all the way down to the town line in South Dartmouth. The barrier cost a total of $18 million to construct, so about $1,000 per square foot. So that's 50 years ago. You can imagine what it would cost today. I was talking to the colonel earlier about some of his recent work in New Jersey in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, and there's a lot of talk now about building something like this there and what it would cost, and especially around New York City and more particularly around Staten Island. And today, something like this would exceed, duplicating this somewhere in the eastern seaboard would cost well over $1 billion, which maybe even for New York City would be cost prohibitive, certainly for a city of our size. There were four main structures to the barrier. So there's the harbor barrier itself. We always tend to call it the dike or the barrier, but it's actually more than one piece, as we know. So there's the hurricane barrier itself, which is the portion of the barrier that crosses the harbor from New Bedford to Fort Phoenix and Fairhaven, and has the two 150-foot, the two large gates that close the 150-foot opening to the harbor. That part's about 4,500 feet long. So that starts basically right over here and goes off to the other side. Then there's the dike portion, which is the principal structure. That extends on the west shore of the harbor, right over there, and consists of a steel gate on Rodney French Boulevard. That's about 4,600 feet long. And then there's the Clark's Cove dike, which wraps around Clark's Cove on the other side of the peninsula. That's 5,800 feet long. And then there's the Fairhaven dike. Here are a few fun facts about the whole thing. 899 tons of granite rock were used to construct the dike. The two huge steel navigational gates weigh 440 tons each and are 59 feet in length. And they are operated, as we all know, by the Army Corps of Engineers, which has skillfully stewarded the entire structure for these 50 years. The barrier protects about 1,700 acres of shoreline, and what we need to know is that this thing really does make a difference in protecting property. It's not to say that this will protect us from every storm. We can't assume that when a hurricane comes. We can't pretend that this is somehow one big Maginot line that will ensure our safety. We take lots of precautions when hurricanes come. Through the leadership of Mark Mahoney, our emergency management director. During Hurricane Sandy, things went pretty well. We made all the right preparations, but of course there might be a bigger storm or a storm that comes closer to New Bedford in the future, and so despite the dike, we have to be prepared for it. Nevertheless, the dike makes a big difference in protecting the city from storm surges ranging all the way up to, I believe it's 16 feet. I'm sure the Colonel can tell you more about that. New York City, I'm sure, wants to have something just like this. In an age of global warming with rising seas, this is an enormous asset for our city. We are very lucky to have it. We can't say that the city fathers who championed this, the construction of this dike had global warming in mind. Nobody was even thinking about that back then. It wasn't even a concept. But as a happy coincidence of their pushing this project, we have it today to protect us for indefinitely from rising storms, and that makes a difference. We're about to break ground right over there on the South Terminal. We are about to become, we hope to become the leader in offshore wind assembly, not just in the Northeast, but hopefully in the United States. The fact that we have this dike here is a huge selling point to companies that might come here and build windmills, that their ships and that their work can be protected by this big wall. It gives them an insurance policy that they might not be able to achieve elsewhere. So it's a huge help for us. We also want to enhance the public benefits offered by the dike. We've been working hard with the state to ask the state to enable us to build public access on top of the dike, and the Army Corps has been very cooperative, and I thank the Colonel for this, to open up the possibility of something on top. And so hopefully in the years to come that's something that we're going to be able to do. So with all that, let me also end by saying this. This anniversary came up on us in a hurry. I wasn't aware of it, but I want to thank in particular Brian Gomes, at-large city councilor, for coming up with the idea of honoring or memorializing this event. It was his idea to do this. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it here today to mark the occasion, but it was a great idea. This really is something for us to celebrate. It's a big pile of rocks after all, but it is so important to our city and to the region, and we're just grateful that we have it. So with that, Let me call Colonel Samaras up to the microphone to offer his remarks about the dike, as well as the Army Corps' role here. And we have a terrific working relationship with the Army Corps here in New Bedford to make the best use of this facility to protect not only our residents but property as well. So, Colonel, if you would come on up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Oh, come on now. Got to be more motivated than that on a brisk morning like this. Well, good morning, Mayor Mitchell, residents of New Bedford, Fairhaven, nearby communities, distinguished guests, and friends. First, I really want to say thanks. Thanks to Mayor Mitchell and the city of New Bedford, and all of you, really, for appreciating the significance of really this engineering marvel. And it is a big pile of rocks, but it is a well-constructed pile of rocks. You know, and observing and in fact celebrating the 50th anniversary of its construction, we do appreciate that you recognize that. You know, this storm and tidal protection project has been safeguarding the city and the communities surrounding it for over 50 years. And as always, and the mayor kind of mentioned this, we stand on the shoulders of giants. You know, more than 50 years ago, our predecessors, many state, local, and federal officials, as well as local residents and their communities, made some hard decisions and some hard sacrifices to bring this project to fruition. And today we can thank those who had the vision, the integrity, and the courage to prepare for the future. And sometimes that's a very hard call to make. You know, construction of the barrier took 4 years, cost over $18 million, and this was both federal and local money. And this was cost sharing before cost sharing was something that we did on a routine basis. Again, part of that hard decision and sacrifice. But to date, it's prevented over $28 million in flood damages, and that includes about $3.5 million just from Hurricane Sandy alone. And believe it or not, this this hurricane barrier is just one strong point in a network of flood damage reduction projects that have been constructed across New England. It includes over 35 dams, 112 local protection projects, and 5 hurricane barriers, 3 of which the Corps operates. And this network in total cost over $500 million to construct back then in the 50s and 60s, and has prevented over $6.5 billion worth of damages. So it's a proud tradition. And he mentioned, the mayor mentioned, down in New Jersey, they had a tough time with Hurricane Sandy, and the locations along the New Jersey coastline that had a core project constructed, whether it be a hardened structure or just beach renourishment, they had minimal damage. Those areas that did not have a core project in front of it were the ones that suffered pretty much the worst of the damage. So the money invested was worth it for those communities as well. But you know, most importantly, these projects are about the people. They protect the families, friends, neighborhoods, communities, you know, the lives and livelihoods of the folks in the surrounding areas. And really, it's just an honor for us to be associated with that tradition. And you know, that tradition really does continue today. We've got a new Chief of Engineers, Lieutenant General Bostic, and his intent is for us as the Corps to continue to increase our value to the nation at the national, state, and local level. And first is to be a national asset and a center of expertise in the realm of engineering and the sciences for the nation and the communities, to be an asset for the Department of Defense as their principal advisor on engineering and the execution of construction, and then finally to be a professional asset for the nation, to maintain a strong engineering, project management, and technical expertise background, and be a credible advocate for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics across the country. So for us, and for me in particular, it's really both exciting and humbling to be sharing this celebration with you today. Exciting to realize the value that we've been able to bring to New Bedford and the city and the region, and humbling really to serve as part of a great team, as part of this community, and really the great tradition that is here resident today. So again, I'd like to thank you, sir, Mayor Mitchell, and the City of New Bedford for sponsoring this great event. And I want to thank you all for your great support. Appreciate it. Thank you. Sir, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Colonel. I'd like to call Brian Bocock, Selectman from Fairhaven, to offer the view from Fairhaven, which likewise benefits from the dike, and the dike has been a big part of the Fairhaven community for the last 50 years. So, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor Mitchell, and good morning to everyone. Crisp November morning. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone to celebrate the commemoration of this hurricane barrier and dike structure. And I think it represents another example of a cooperative effort between the City of New Bedford, the town of Fairhaven, with state and federal officials to have this structure built here. Now, it predates Mayor Mitchell and myself, 50 years. He probably doesn't even remember, may not even been alive at the time. I was a small child when this was being built. And if you turn the clock back 50 years or just before 50 years, devastating no-name storm of 1938 that raised havoc with the harbor of New Bedford, the whole East Coast. We had fishing boats on the front lawn of Fairhaven High School, fishing boats up on the Pope's Island area. Devastating storm in 1952, a couple of hurricanes in 1954, and officials decided that this structure needed to be built, and they made it happen. Again, a cooperative effort of many people looking forward. The East Coast of the United States was the industrial heartland of the United States. New Bedford played a big part in that role. If you think back before this barrier was built, you had many manufacturing plants just along the waterfront here in New Bedford. J.C. Rhodes, New Bedford Storage Warehouse, the Board Counting House, fish houses, which would be routinely devastated by hurricanes. There's been a transition. With this barrier here and the protection that it does give to Fairhaven's industrial base, but also New Bedford's, you can see how the fishing industry has thrived, and now New Bedford is the #1 fishing port on a monetary basis in the nation. Fairhaven has one of the best facilities for construction and renovation of fishing vessels, ocean-going vessels, because we're protected by this barrier. So it has had a tremendous economic impact on our area. Now, Mayor Mitchell touched upon the fact that New Bedford is going to be the hub on the East Coast for wind turbine production, and when they build wind farms off the coast of Massachusetts and other places, it's going to provide jobs for the people of New Bedford. It's going to provide increased amount of revenue for this area, and as people become more aware of the potential for wind turbines, both ocean-based and land-based, New Bedford is going to be the hub for that. And because this barrier is here, protecting this harbor and continuing to protect this harbor for many years to come, it gives us an opportunity to develop this harbor unlike any other harbor along the East Coast. As other speakers have mentioned, just a month ago, Hurricane Sandy, just 300 miles down the road, devastated the New Jersey area, Staten Island, the New York area. You can bet that those people wish they had a structure like this. We're happy to have it here. It's going to be here for hundreds of years to come, and it's going to benefit both the Fairhaven community, New Bedford community, and all those people that are going to grow up in this area in the future. But we're happy to be here today, and thank you for the opportunity.
All right, one other perspective, and I know it's cold today, one other perspective that I hope to offer was from Larry Worden, who is the commissioner of the Department of Public Facilities here in the city. And Larry does a tremendous job in maintaining not only public facilities, the public buildings that the city owns, and there were over 90 of them, but also our public parks, and is responsible for so much of the city's work around festivals. And so he wears many hats and accomplishes so much for us. But one thing that you might not know about him is that as a kid, Larry is old enough to remember sitting here and watching the construction go on, and I was hoping that Larry might take a moment to reflect on that. Larry?
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. I was pleased when the Mayor asked me to speak at this event. Interestingly, it was probably the single event that influenced my career path as I went through school. In 1962, when the project started, I was a student at Hannigan Grammar School, which was right adjacent to where the project, part of the project, was starting. And on my way to school every day, and on my way home from school, I always took time to stop and watch the work that was going on. I was very interested in it, and I became very interested more and more, and moved on to Roosevelt, and the project was all around us in the south end here. And as the years went on, 4 years the project went on, I was constantly watching the project in progress, and took a keen interest in it. Moved on to high school and college. When I got out of school, I took a job with the city in 1975, and first project I had to do, I was asked to put together a report on the city's combined sewer overflows, and I was told that a lot of it interacted with the hurricane barrier, and basically they said, get in touch with a gentleman by the name of John Arruda that was in charge of the facility, so he'll help you out. And so I came down, made an appointment with John. He was very gracious, brought the plans out, spread them out on the table, and we started going over a lot of the information that I needed. And every once in a while he'd point something out, and I'd say, yes, I'm aware of that, where that pipe is or where that structure is. And finally John said to me, I got a question for you. How old are you? And I said, I'm 23. And he said, how do you know this stuff? And I said, well, during the construction of the project, I watched them build it. And he was pretty amused by that. He said that he had something he wanted to show me that he thought would be of interest to me. Brought me over to a file drawer and brought out some construction photos from the project from 10 years earlier. And it was amazing. I was looking at photos of activities that I had actually watched being done. And I remained good friends with John until he retired. 15 years later, I was appointed Commissioner of Public Works by then Mayor John Bullard, and I found myself suddenly in charge of the maintenance of the city's portion of the barrier, the street gates and the pump station that's on Cove Road. So I went full cycle with the project from early on watching the work being done, from my early years with the city, and eventually ending up being responsible for the maintenance and working with the Corps. So it was an interesting time for me throughout. It's now maintained by DPI, Ron LaBelle, but it's been an interesting time for me over the years, and I was pleased to be part of this event.
Thanks, Larry. All right, let me close by I want to offer the Army Corps a proclamation from the city as a token of our appreciation and to mark the occasion. And it says as follows: it says, City of New Bedford hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to the Army Corps of Engineers in celebration of the 50th anniversary of the groundbreaking of the New Bedford Hurricane Barrier, and in recognition of the Corps' role in the design and oversight of the construction of a structure that has protected New Bedford Harbor for over half a century and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. So, Colonel, it's a pleasure for me as the mayor to give you this, and thanks so much for all the great work you've done, and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. I assume there are no questions. People are, I see teeth chattering out there, so we'll call it a wrap. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to field them. Thanks, everybody.
Happy birthday, dear Corinne. Happy birthday to you.
Your choice to recycle can affect more people than you think. Call Marissa at 508-979-1493 to request your free recycling bins. This message was brought to you by the City of New Bedford and UMass Dartmouth Charlton School of Business.
Mark! Anna! Ooh! Hey! Forgot your lunch. Hey!
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent, because kids in foster care don't need perfection. They need you.
I look up to a lot of the older heads, you know, the innovators, the heads of the art movements of the past. They kept it really edgy, and like a lot of the Latin American muralists and Latin American artists, and their styles were very unique and new to their time. You know, somewhat controversial, but that's who I look up to mainly. Personally, I'm very excited about going to college. It's something new and it's something different than what I'm used to. I'm definitely going to be a little out of my element, but that's what makes it so exciting, is that, you know, it's something fresh. Well, there's so many opportunities that I think I could miss out on if I didn't go, you know? Getting into college takes planning and vision. You know, it's just like when I take a brick wall and turn it into a canvas for my art. Paintings help me realize that I've got what it takes.
Well, I first started skating with my friend. He had an extra board, and then he just gave it to me, and I've been skating ever since. Well, when I don't land a trick and I have my mind set on something, and I'm not getting what I want, I just keep going for it until I get it right. My mom, she didn't go to college, so she wants me to experience that whole thing, and so I could end up getting like a good job. I think to get into college, I'll have to be determined. Just like when I want to get a new trick, and skating's helped me realize I've got what it takes.